Hi, I'm Lisa Niven Kelly, founder of Beaducation, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about our Beaducation original font sets, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to stamp with them. So let me tell you why we're so excited about these Beaducation original font sets. I'm going to mention some of the special features. They're made in the United States from hardened tool steel. They come in this nice box, so every letter has their own spot. And we plate these with nickel silver, so you don't need to worry about them rusting. Each stamp is beveled on the back, which actually makes a smaller striking area. It's going to disperse the impact of your hammer better and get a sharp impression. And on each letter shank, there's engraved the actual letter of the stamp. So that's where your thumb is going to go, right where the letter is, when you stamp, to make sure that your letters face the right way. The most exciting thing about these sets are that the letters are perfectly centered on the stamp, which you don't see on a lot of the other letter sets, but you do on these. Let's take a look at some of these letters up close. I'm going to stamp out the word fancy because we're fancy here at Beaducation. So I've got my F-A-N-C-Y. And remember, as you're looking at it here, you're seeing the mirror image so that it impresses the proper way. But what I want you to see here is how the F looks like it's not centered on the stamp. The A, the N, and the C are perfectly centered, and the Y again looks uncentered. It looks low, and the F looks high. Having the letters on here shifted this way, some of the tall letters high and some of the long letters low, will make it so that when you stamp them, they will stamp in the proper spot in comparison to the other letters. So let me show you that right now. So I'm just going to show you real quick how easy it is to line up these stamps to get a straight line. I always start with a mark on my metal here as sort of a guideline of where I want to line up my letters. And because these stamps are so precision engraved in the center, I can actually line up the edge of my stamp. So I'm going to line that edge up right with the line. And there's my F. It's a little bit higher than the line, which is fine because there's about a millimeter space between the bottom of the letter and the bottom of the stamp. So now my A, if I line up the bottom of the stamp again with the line, you see that they're lining up in a straight line. Now to get the spacing correct left to right, the spacing between the letters, that's a little trickier. Let me finish stamping out fancy and then we'll zoom in so you can see this nice straight line. But again, lining up the bottom of the stamp with the line. And I'm lining up the bottom edge of this circle that's the end of my stamp. So you can see that the letters came out in a nice straight line, and even though the F was shifted a little high on the stamp and the Y was shifted a little low, it came out perfect and I didn't have to shift the stamp. On other lowercase letter stamps, they center the Y or they center the entire F, so you actually have to shift and hold the stamp differently in a different position than you do the other letters. So you can see it's pretty straightforward to get the letters to line up in a straight line, lining up the bottom of the letters. But to get the spacing correct, left to right, the spacing between the letters is a little trickier. Mainly it's because not all letters have the same width. So like a lowercase L is just a thin line, whereas an A is quite wide. So here's a trick that I use, but really it's just a whole lot of practice. If I'm working with a thick letter, like an N, and I'm lining it up to another letter that's about the same, when I say thickness, I actually mean width, I line up the stamp, again, with the bottom against the line, and with the stamp half covering the previous letter. Maybe we can zoom in on that. So you can see right there, the bottom of my stamp is lined up with the line and the left side of my stamp is kind of covering half of the A. Let's give that a stamp and see how it comes out. So that's pretty good. The N is right next to it. I kind of slipped there. It's a little tilted, but that's okay. Let's try again with one more letter. I now have the C. So So that's a little trick to try to get that spacing left to right. Just one more thing before I go. If you wanted to center a word on, say, a circle, make sure that you draw that line about 1 millimeter lower than you want the bottom of the letters to lie. Because remember, the stamp is going to line up right with that line, the bottom of the stamp, and then there's about 1 millimeter between the bottom of the stamp and the bottom of the letter. So by shifting the line a little bit low, once you stamp it out, your letters should lie right in the center.